In the sequence of the chapters of the poetics, now we are towards the end of the poetics, and we will resume our study of the poetics with chapter 16. In chapter 16, we will study recognition. We have discussed some terms in previous chapters, and one of them is recognition, and here we will discuss this term recognition in detail. So chapter 16 includes recognition, its kind, and in 17th to 18th we will see rules for poets and dramatists, kinds of tragedy. So in these two chapters, 17th and 18th, Aristotle sets some rules for poets and dramatists. The poets and dramatists should keep in their mind some rules when they are on the work of composition. In chapter 19, what is the thought in tragedy? What type of thought should be included in tragedy? We will see in this chapter. Chapter 20 to 22, diction and style. Diction and style should not be mean, and he insists on metaphor. In chapter 23rd, we'll see the epic. Chapter 24, epic and tragedy, comparative study of epic and tragedy, and Aristotle claims superiority of tragedy to epic. Chapter 25 deals with objections of critics and Aristotle's answer to these critics. Chapter 26, epic and tragedy, the superiority of tragedy. So in chapter 16 we will see recognition and its kinds. So in chapter 11th, Aristotle has already defined and explained anagnorisis, discovery or recognition. We are aware of these terms: a change from ignorance to knowledge, bringing about a reversal in the fortunes of the tragic hero. Since he regards discovery as an important element of a successful plot, in this chapter he further discusses the point and lists 6 kinds of recognition or discovery. The least artistic is the recognition brought about by signs or marks. These signs may be by birth, or they may have acquired after birth as scarce, etc. Further, these signs or tokens may be external, like necklaces, etc., which may bring about the discovery. To use such signs as proofs implies reflection, and such a use of them is inartistic. When used at all, their use must be spontaneous, not the result of thought but of chance. Next comes the discoveries introduced by the poet at will. Their use is arbitrary and so inartistic. They do not grow naturally and logically out of the plot. They are manipulated by the poet without regard to necessity and probability. Discovery also depends upon memory. It is a discovery made by a person whose memory is awakened by something he sees or hears. He is reminded of the past and the recognition follows. So these are the kinds of recognition. In chapter 17 to 18th, some practical rules for would-be dramatist are set by Aristotle, and kinds of tragedy are also discussed here. So this chapter is concerned with the process of constructing plays, and Aristotle lays down certain guidelines for this purpose. While constructing his plays, the poet should do 3 things. First, he should imaginatively visualize the action. He should be able to see the action he makes. He makes the objects for his tragedy. Secondly, he should work out the emotions with the very gestures of his dramatic personage. And thirdly, he should begin with the universal form of the plot. Adding the names and episodes later visualization means imaginative sympathy. It means that the poet actually sees the scene with his mind's eye, and this would enable him to keep out the impossible, the improbable, and the ludicrous from his play. The poet should try to feel the emotions of his characters, and only then he would be able to write out the speeches which express those emotions effectively. Not only that, he should also act the parts of his dramatic personage to see if the speeches he has penned for them are appropriate or not. If he wishes his audience to weep, he must first feel the sorrow himself. Effective characterization is possible only in this way. In next chapter, what is thought in tragedy? He has already discussed plot and character in detail and touched upon song and spectacle. Aristotle now comes to diction and thought. Thought is treated in this chapter, and the following three chapters are devoted to the treatment of diction. So there are three ways in which thought, the intellectual element expresses itself. So what does mean by thought here? So, intellectual element. Thought is here intellectual element that is included in construction of tragedy, and three things should be included in thought: proof and refutation, production of emotional effects, and indications of the importance or significance of anything. Proof and reputations here means thought expresses itself in the arguments which the characters use to prove or disprove something. They may try to establish their own point of view or refute the arguments advanced by the other characters. And in production of emotional effects, today we tend to separate thought and emotion, but for the classics, emotion was a mode of persuasion and hence could be considered as a variety of thought. The speaker may introduce into his speech a variety of emotions in order to persuade and convince. And by the statement of indications of the importance or significance of anything, Aristotle means that thought is also expressed in speeches, which are intended to exaggerate or diminish the importance of anything. In next three chapters, Aristotle deals with diction and style. Diction is the choice and arrangement of words and images in a literary composition. The words which a poet uses, says Aristotle, may be divided into six kinds: those current in ordinary speech, foreign terms imported from other languages, or from dialect like Fey or Inuit, those which are metaphorical like cold blooded, the ornamental periphrases beloved of 18th century poet, new coinages like Jabberwock or the fairy mumbling in the garden, and forms not entirely invented but modified, the lengthening as in the case of fairy, by shortening as in sovereign, or by simple variation as corpse for corpse. So these are the different kinds of diction that Aristotle proposes. Aristotle proceeds that the poet's style should fulfill above all two conditions: it must be clear and it must not be mean. So what is most important thing in this choice of diction and style? That diction must be clear and it must not be mean. If it uses only current words, it will be clear but not mean. And in the epic, having examined tragedy in detail, Aristotle now comes to the epic, which narrates in versified language and does not imitate as tragedy does. But there are a number of points and resemblance between the epic and the drama. In epic, as in drama, the unity of story is a point of capital importance. It is not enough that it should relate the events of a single period or one of man's career. The story must have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The parts must be subordinate and coherent to the whole. Next chapter that discusses epic and tragedy. Epic has an many kind. The epic has as many kinds as the tragedy. It may be simple or complex. Its effect may be predominantly due either to character drawing or to tragic suffering. But obviously, there can be no species of epic as of tragedy, which depends for its effect on spectacle. The constituent elements of an epic are the same as those of a tragedy, with the exception of spectacle and correction. As epic poem can be longer than a tragedy and can present events occurring simultaneously at different places, which adds to the richness and variety of interest. And it has another advantage in being able to describe marvels which cannot be represented on the stage. It differs also in meter, since experience has proved that there is only one meter in which epic poetry can be written, the heroic. As in his treatment of drama, Aristotle is practical here also. He keeps in view the application of his theory in practice, and for this purpose, he takes Homer as the supreme model of artistic unity, of dramatic construction, of the author's role in epic. He should speak as little as possible in his own character, and above all of the arts, which is essential both in epic and dramatic poetry. The art of telling lies in the right way. Next chapter, we will see the objections of critics and Aristotle's answer. Aristotle examines a work of art from the reader's or critic's point of view and not from the point of view of the artist. As he had been doing so far, he first examines the objections of critics one by one and then proceeds to answer such criticism. The chapter is highly technical and of little significance from the examination point of view. Aristotle answers to the charge of impossibility in different points. First, although one should generally avoid impossibility, they are sometimes justified when they support the goal of imitation. As an example, Aristotle cites Homer's depiction of the pursuit of Hector. We know from chapter 14 that this is marvelous and is justified in Homer because it is not represented on stage where it would seem ludicrous. And some impossibilities are accidental rather than essential. Aristotle cites the example of representation of a hind without horns. In last chapter, Aristotle compares epic and tragedy and claims superiority of tragedy. The poetics as we have it ends with a comparison of tragedy and epic poetry. Tragedy has been criticized as vulgar because its appeal is to the crowd and acting can easily become theatrical and exaggerated, but that is not the poet's fault. Besides, epic recitation is sometimes similarly vulgarized. Moreover, acting is not essential for the effect of tragedy, which can be fully felt even by a reader. Tragedy is superior to the epic because it contains all the pleasure giving elements of epic with music and spectacle. In addition, its effect on the emotion is stronger because being shorter it is more concentrated. It has greater unity, and lastly, it better attains its poetic effect. What that effect is has been implicit throughout the poetics and is clearly stated in chapter 6 and 14. That is to prove relief through catharsis of the tragic emotions of pity and fear. So these are 26 chapters of the poetics, and I hope you have done all these chapters at your own level, and now you should have done all the assignments that you were given.